You're listening to Back Pew Convos.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Sal. And this is the podcast God wants you to listen to.
So if you want to remain in God's will, have a sit down.
Grab a beverage of your choice.
And have a listen.
You're welcome. Recording for that.
Meatloaf, schmeatloaf. Double meatloaf.
Some remember him as Meatloaf, some remember him as Bob.
Yeah, it's meatloaf for me, I guess.
You don't remember him in Fight Club?
Nah. I've never seen that, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, he has a nickname, but his name is Bob, and he has lady breasts. So,
I see.
Anyway, that's where some know him as Bob from.
Oh. Yeah. I've never seen Fight Club.
Well, that's because the first rule of it is you don't talk about it. So,
So even if I had,
you couldn't talk about it.
we couldn't talk about it.
I'm literally risking my life right now.
How brave.
Some days you can only just put on a brave face and...
It's like, I guess.
It's the only thing I can do. Just put on a brave face and just exist, just be.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a lot of thoughts.
Yeah.
I don't know which one to go on first.
I've got a lot of thoughts as well. Not related to Meatloaf or Bob.
Yeah, no.
Or lady breasts. Although generally those are on my mind, but right now I'm not.
For some reason, something you said reminded me of something that I heard that Peter Thiel had said.
Yep.
About the Antichrist.
Schmantichrist, yeah.
Because didn't he compare her to that, compare the Antichrist to that Greta Thunberg or whatever?
Oh, I don't know.
When I heard that today, I literally laughed out loud.
It's like, you build it up, it's like, this is the most diabolical, the most dangerous, the most sadistic, most terrifying creature that has ever walked the face of the earth. And then it's like this tiny little Swedish teenage girl. My God.
It's stupid. Yeah, it really did make me laugh from the bowels of my gut.
Yes. You girded your loins and give it a hearty chuckle.
One of those deep belly laughs,
right. That's hilarious. I didn't hear that. To be honest, I had literally never even heard of the guy until you mentioned his name. And
I've
then
heard his name, but
and then the weird thing was I'd never heard of him. And then you mentioned his name to me. And then I opened up my YouTube to watch just whatever. Like when I work, I'll just open YouTube and kind of scroll my feed until I find something that interests me, and then I'll watch it. And there was the most recent episode of Data Over Dogma with Dan McClellan. And apparently they were talking about the same thing that you had been, that the same reason why you mentioned Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
They were talking about that. So I watched it. And that's the only thing I know about the guy was what they said about it. And they didn't really play they didn't talk too much about it,
Yeah, I don't know much either. I'd heard his name before and knew that he was kind of associated with with folks like JD Vance and different folks, I think.
They did talk about how he bankrolled Hulk Hogan. I don't know if you know that, but
I did not know that.
The way that they framed it, and I was working, so whatever, look it up for yourself. I don't really care. But the way that they kind of explained it was like, you remember the whole thing with Hulk Hogan when like somebody released the sex tape of him or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it was Gawker was the site or whatever. Well, that site apparently had like outed him as gay, and he didn't want them to, and so he like funded Hulk Hogan's like legal defense against them to like sue them to like. That's what I got from the conversation. Again, I don't know. Don't trust me because I don't really care enough to even look it up. But
outed Peter Thiel?
Yeah, he's gay. He's married to a man.
Okay. Okay. I got you. Yeah, I didn't know that about him actually.
I didn't know he was married. They had mentioned that, and then I looked him up because I wanted to just get some basic information about him. And you know how like when you like Google somebody's name, and if it's somebody famous, it'll pop up with sort of like their Wikipedia profile, and it'll say like who their spouse
Yeah, yeah,
is and
yeah.
when they were born, and it was I don't even know, it was a man's name.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. I knew that he was the guy who founded PayPal
I should probably look that up because
and that
just to be sure.
and that he was filthy stinking rich.
Yes.
And my main takeaway, apparently he's been, I don't really, again, I don't really know anything else about him, so I don't know. I think I've seen him before.
He's married to someone named Matt Danzinson or something like that. So that's, I mean,
Yeah.
I hate to throw a generality out there, but that sounds like a dude's name,
Yeah.
if I'm being honest.
How dare you?
But I mean, I'm not judging him for that. I'm judging Peter Thiel for sure, but not for that.
uh, yeah, I don't know much about him at all. But apparently he's given like some lectures and done some interviews where he's talked about the Antichrist. And I looked into some of it today, and he says he says a lot of different stuff about it. Some stuff that I might would be like, okay, this kind of makes sense. But well, I mean, I say that, but like even just to talk about the Antichrist is just already wrong. It's not like there's an Antichrist. There's many Antichrists, and that's what it says in the Bible, actually.
Well, the Bible clearly says.
It says that there are many Antichrists, and pretty much in every one of those instances, the Antichrist is linked with a what seems to be a critique of Gnosticism. Um, there would have been some around that time that didn't think that Jesus actually was like actually like that God actually became a person, took on flesh, because the material world, the flesh, humanity is evil, and so God it's bad. They're real bad. So God could not become evil. So they did not believe that Christ came in the flesh. They thought it was a spiritual um, thing. So that was what it seems that First John and I think it's Second Thessalonians. I think that that's what that seems to be referring to. I mean, I was going to say on my reading, but it seems like it's just kind of there.
I'm just gonna take your word for it. I didn't look it up.
Yeah. But
That that was kind of actually, you remember I said when we were talking about this and was like, my one takeaway was actually has nothing kind of to do with what Peter Thiel said. My one takeaway with it was like, that's the one thing, this is the one area that I think is actually kind of, I'm glad that you're still as churchy as you are, because I just don't care. Like, I don't care about the like, I
yeah,
never would have even looked that up because I'm so far removed from like the Antichrist stuff that just, I don't even care to look, you know what I mean?
yeah,
So, but it is important to talk about, especially because in the context of Peter, you know,
right.
like it's because people do believe in it and the context that he's using it in, like it is important to talk about. So that way it's beneficial for you because we never, like, if it was up to me, we never would have brought this up just because I didn't know. Like, I don't pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then but then there's the other way that some folks, and this would probably be the way that me and you use it more often than not. Whenever we say Antichrist, we really just mean anything that's antithetical to the way of Christ, anything
Exactly.
that opposes Christ and his teaching and the way that we ought to live our lives as Christians.
Right. Yeah, if I use it, that's the way I use it. I mean, that's why I said I'm so far removed from it, just because to me, just the Antichrist is anything that's opposite of Christ, right? Which to me, Christ is represents the embodiment of love, you know, love for others and self-sacrifice. So it's literally like probably the seven deadly sins, like gluttony and like greed and like
Yeah.
everything that's the opposite of what Jesus represents. is Antichrist to me. So
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of people use it in that same way. Um, I just thought it would maybe worth saying that. I guess technically,
right,
what the scriptures say is something more specific than that.
right.
Certainly has nothing to do with any of the Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins books and or movies. It's certainly not some sort of. You know what? I've always the
It could be Greta though.
that makes me laugh
She's so scary.
every single time I've ever seen anyone depicting the Antichrist. It's always been a dude. They've always been kind of like somewhat they seem charming, but they also have like the way that like the movies and stuff portray them as like also like you can see something behind
Right.
there that's sinister.
They have that like they're well dressed and kind of like attractive physically to the point of like they can deceive you because you know they like look pleasant, but you know there's something lying beneath the surface there.
Yeah.
I actually think it's really telling if he really thinks that someone like Greta Thunberg could be the Antichrist that he believes in, because um it means he's scared of her. Like the message that she carries with her, that message, like he can realize that there's power behind the things that she is saying, even though it is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But you know, she does have a following. I mean, she is someone whose message resonates. I think for the good, but
I don't know enough about her honestly
to me, I mean,
on it, but
when I say to for the good, the only thing I know about her really is that she's been an advocate for the environment, which is very
yeah.
important to me. And most recently, she was on the flotilla to Palestine, and she got arrested by Israel and was detained in Israel and just recently released. But she was kind of trying to get supplies into Palestine and
Mm,
doing what she could as a
yeah.
teenage girl to stand up for Palestine. So
Right.
seems like for me her intentions are in the right place, and she's got a
Yeah.
powerful message.
Yeah. The only thing I knew was the environmental stuff. But yeah, if I guess if you're someone who stands to make a lot of money off of the things that she's opposing,
Right.
then I could see. And the most telling thing about what he said that I thought was interesting was that he also tied these traits or characteristics of the Antichrist, tied it to financial. Um, what's the word? I'm totally blanking.
I don't know, man.
Regulations,
Oh yeah,
like
regulations.
yeah, like
That whenever you said financial and you were talking Antichrist, the only I got distracted by the whole microchip in your wrist thing, and then I
oh
couldn't
yeah,
think about anything else.
yeah, but like someone like government imposing financial regulations
Right.
on people, basically like not being able to, like he even specifically mentioned like not being able to hide your money as someone who's wealthy and like getting tax breaks and stuff. Like
Yeah, I mean, what would he do with $1 million less? Like, I was literally thinking about this. I don't even know why I was thinking about this, but I was like, I really think that people, if people really realized how much some of these uber rich people had, they would be just absolutely pissed off.
yeah,
Because, like, people like us, $1 million changes our life
oh yeah,
forever.
I might quit my job.
Yes, for $1 million. These people have billions and trillions of dollars. Like, it's unfathomable. The difference
Right.
between a trillion and a million is unfathomable because we can't even fathom having a million.
Yeah.
So a trillion is just, I really think people just don't comprehend. The numbers are so out of the stratosphere of a normal person's life that we just don't even realize how much. I mean, it's literally disgusting, like disgustingly rich.
Yeah, and when you have that much money, it becomes that much easier to just continue making it.
Yeah,
You know,
that's the real kick in the sack. Let's just say.
because I mean, even though like I mean, even if you because I've actually thought about this before, like daydreaming, like if I won the lottery or something, like how much money would it actually take? And then like honestly, if you just took a decent amount of money and invested it well, you could live off the dividends
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
like you're set for life. Like you don't ever,
That's why I get absolutely just furious when people try to talk to me about like the raising the tax on the rich and it's gonna just stifle the desire for innovation and why people aren't going to want to work hard to make money. But like this person could lose $10 million in a day and not even notice it. Like,
right?
do you know how many families you could feed for $10 million? And this person could lose that in one day and not give a damn. Like, it's
Yeah,
unbelievable. So I
right.
don't want to hear about like, oh, well, we can't rate, we got to give them tax loopholes and we don't want to raise the taxes on the super rich. Like, get the out of here, man.
Yeah, that's Antichrist apparently
Right.
to this fella.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously it's Antichrist because Jesus would absolutely have wanted this person to have 10 million more dollars than feed the amount of poor people that $10 million could feed. I mean, to hell with those poor people, right? That's what Jesus would have said. For sure.
Exactly. I mean, if there was one thing that Jesus never spoke about ever, it was people being really rich
Right, absolutely. He
and being
definitely
stingy with their money.
he never spoke about that. Now, hell, no one spoke more about hell than Jesus.
Yeah. He spoke more about money than he did hell, actually, and never in a super favorable way. So,
Yeah, but no, you got to take that in context. It just always cracks me up because that's always the excuse. Like people will literally twist themselves into pretzel knots to get around the Jesus's critique of wealth. Like,
yeah,
no, well, he said that it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle. He's really talking about this little valley that like just turn as many somersaults as it takes to get around it. But like anything else in scripture, like LGBTQ stuff, no, it says what it says. You don't need the it says what it says. Don't even think about it. It says what it says. But like anything he said about wealth or riches, like let me just make sure I twist myself in enough pretzel knots to make sure that I can go to sleep at night with my bank account looking the way it does. Like, just disgusts me, dude.
yeah. I mean, neither one of us are very like wealthy, but even the amount that I do have, I sometimes feel bad.
That's actually why I was thinking. Remember I said that I was thinking this morning or last night about like the people just don't realize how much money these super rich people. That's now it's coming back to me. I remember that's why I was thinking about it. Was because I was thinking this morning when I was running about our time in Honduras
Yeah,
last year when we went, and I was thinking about the level of poverty there compared to the level like the money I have, and
right.
like how even I feel guilty about the money I have, and I live paycheck to paycheck, like just you know what I mean?
Right.
Like I I can't even like I have to we went on this cruise or whatever and I literally have to like plan and budget and really follow it to a T just to make sure that I can afford to send my family on a week long or like a 4-day cruise vacation. Like
Right.
I live paycheck to paycheck and I feel guilty at times about the amount of wealth I have because I've been to a place like Zambrano and seen how
Yeah.
those people, some of those people live. So I
Right.
feel guilty about that, but $1
Right.
trillion dollars,
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
$100 billion, like
I'd say if there's one idol that, in particular, Americans are just far too happy to overlook and explain away, it's greed. The sin of greed, idol of mammon, money. Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I don't. I mean, really, there's nothing else to add to that as far as I'm concerned. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
it's just it makes it that much more egregious because we're so judgmental about all these other things, right? Like, I mean, yeah, I've said a couple of words in this episode that people would be angry at me for saying, but more so than someone like Peter Thiel or Elon Musk or any of the super rich people. Like, they would be more upset with me for saying "damn" than the amount of money that they have. Like,
Yeah.
it's just I don't know what else to say about it. It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
So,
Indeed. Indeed it is. Well, that some of the Antichrist stuff did get me thinking a little bit. I have a lot of things I was thinking about, and I wasn't sure in what order to bring them up,
just rapid fire them.
I guess. But since we talked about the Antichrist stuff, the it did get me thinking. I've been thinking lately about a little bit of the and this it just reminded me of it today, but the connections between how it's ironic that like some folks, especially some folks that are more Calvinist leaning, like to um, call Universalists heretics and try to associate Universalism with Gnosticism as like this like big scary boogeyman that like oh that's Gnostic. See, you don't want to be a Gnostic, do you? Don't you know the Gnostics were heretics?
Isn't Gnosticism kind of like the literal opposite of universalism?
Yeah, actually, yeah. There's that's what's so crazy about it. Like, uh, at least from my study on it, my understanding of it, from listening to people that are far more educated than I am, like there was even a fella. We actually responded to one of his YouTube a video where he was talking about universalism. This was
Michael
years ago.
McClymond?
Yes, Dr. Michael McClymond. His book, The Devil's Redemption, is like 1,300 pages. It's like the size of like a Bible in length.
Which means I'm probably not going to read it.
Yeah, I don't plan to. I have read a lot of reviews of it, and I've watched a lot of podcasts where he's talked about it, and other people where they've talked about it and given responses. Like, I have a decent idea of what he does with the book, but I've never read it, so I don't know all the details of it.
Right. I mean,
But
if you're super interested in that, like, then read it. I think you should. For me, it would be like me sitting down to read a 1,300 page book about the Antichrist, which I said I already don't care about. Like, it would.
right.
Why would I sit down and read 13 pages, about it?
Yeah, I would say that if you're interested in studying that topic, I wouldn't say not to read
Right.
The Devil's Redemption. Sure, read it. I would say that if you're going to read The Devil's Redemption, also read Ilaria Ramelli's work too. She has I think it's shorter than his book, but she has a rather lengthy book also that she did. I can't remember the name of that one, but then she kind of condensed it down into a more popular level work, and it's far more readable and way shorter.
Yeah.
And I actually have that, and I can't remember the name of that either, but it's Ilaria Ramelli. But yeah, so like, because they're both looking at it from a historical perspective. Dr. McClyman based on his area of research and he doesn't seem like maybe he's as well equipped or as well studied in the necessary cultural and historical context and the Greek and all of that, like Ilaria Ramelli is, but
He's more studied than I am, though.
yes, for sure. But the only reason I even bring him up is because it's ironic because he is number one, he's a Calvinist. Number two, he tries to tie universalism. That's basically the entire book. That it hinges on tying universalism somehow to Gnosticism, and that just being like the the final like death blow or whatever, like because it's tied to Gnosticism. Which even if it's true, I don't see.
Right.
I
Well,
don't,
that was
but
literally what I was thinking when you were saying that. Like most of the people that I know, like or somebody like me, that is. I mean, to be fair, I don't really know what I believe about the afterlife, but I sure as hell don't believe in a literal eternal conscious torment hell. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Like, um, but if somebody was like, "Well, buddy, what your beliefs are aligning with Gnosticism," I would be like, "Okay, I don't care. Like, I don't care."
right. Well, I mean, yeah. So it was like even if it was tied to Gnosticism, which I think that based on my study of it, it's actually not. It's ironically, that's where I'm kind of was going with this. Ironically, it's kind of the other way around.
Right.
Based on the study that I've done and people that I've listened to on the topic, it's actually many Gnostics actually believed in a sort of double predestination.
Yeah, I don't really know. I don't know anything about it, to be honest. What I do know about the Gnostics, I thought was more about like, uh, like kind of like what you said, the flesh and the physical is fallen, it's evil, it's
Yeah,
disgusting. So you have to transcend that. You have to put it off, and so like that's not universally applied. That's like you have to do the work to do that. Um, and so that's kind of literally the opposite of Gnosticism, like
right.
universalism. You know what I mean? Like universalism implies what, depending on how you work it out, it implies everybody gets there in the end. And Gnosticism, at least my super uneducated understanding, is like very few people actually get there. It's like the super minority that
Yeah,
actually achieve.
right. And it's also my understanding that that's known beforehand. Like God sort of like predetermines, pre-chooses who is and isn't going to be able to ascend to that necessary level, you know.
This is a completely different topic, but every time I think about that, I say it's completely different, but it's built on what you were saying there. Every time I hear people talk about predestination like that, it's like, what is the point then? What's the point?
Right.
It seems so silly. Rick, get it together. But yeah, I don't know. Like anytime I hear people talk about predestination, especially like a hardcore, rigid, like Calvinist kind of predestination, it's like,
Yeah.
then what do you think's the point? Like, why? Why? For God's glory. Okay.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay, pal.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't that's never made any sense to me. Um but yeah, I guess like you were just saying though, the that also that Gnostic worldview also kind of sounds like total depravity, does it not?
Yes, absolutely. To
Which,
me, which I'm not Calvinist or Gnostic that I know of, so
yeah.
I'm not an expert. But yeah, to me, it sounds like it.
So that sounds like we're talking about at least a couple of the letters of the tulip right there found in Gnosticism.
Yeah,
So if you're Calvinist,
we got the TP there, right?
repent. Huh?
Do we got the TP there? Total depravity and predestination.
Well, the P in tulip stands for preservation of the saints.
Well, that just ruins it then, because TP, so you wipe your butt with it. So
Yeah. I think that well, I suppose the L would be where predestination fits into the tulip because it's a limited atonement.
yeah. See, I'm so out of the loop of it. I don't even remember what TULIP stands for. I just don't even bother. Don't care.
Let me see if I can recall it. It's total depravity, unconditional election,
Hmm.
which is that's part of it too, I guess. The election is
Predestined. Yeah,
it's unconditional, meaning that there's nothing you can do to earn it. It's just
it is what it
it
is.
is what it is. You're elected, or you're not, or you're elected for hell, or elected for salvation.
Right.
Although the term is it's more like non-elect and elect versus elected for either or. But
Congratulations, you've been elected to hell.
so I guess actually the U fits it as well, but then the L is limited atonement, which, that Christ only died for the elect,
Right.
which kind of fits into that too. So I mean, that we're talking about, even if you gave a half on both of those, we're talking about two letters so
Yeah.
far.
Right.
The I is irresistible grace, which I'm down with that one, and then preservation of the saints is the P. So if God elects to offer you this grace, you will not be able to resist it because you're elect. And if you actually are elect, you will persevere to the end.
Okay.
So actually, considering the fact that most of those have to do with election, actually, you could say that in a sense, all 5 letters of the tulip are Gnostic.
Yeah.
Or at least as Gnostic as universalism is,
Right.
if not more.
Well, the hard thing about even implying that universalism aligns with anything is that there's not a this is universalism,
Yeah,
right? There's like,
right,
oh, universalism is more of a, or ultimate reconciliation, or whatever term you want to use, is more of a blanket term to just kind of describe the end point. But the how you go about it is different depending
right.
on who you're going to ask. I mean, so
Yeah,
even trying to pin down, like saying universalism is Gnostic or universalism is this, like, okay, which version of it? Like,
right.
you know what I mean? There probably is a Gnostic version of it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, because honestly, universalism marries pretty well with Calvinism, actually. Like it, in particular, with like their view of God's sovereignty and irresistible grace and all that kind of stuff. Like you could apply all of that to just all you do is just say that Calvin was right. He was just way off on the numbers. It's just he's
Yeah,
everybody.
sure, it's limited atonement, but it's limited to literally everybody. So,
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, other than that, I mean, if you believe that like God has predetermined and like God has chosen and God has willed that certain people be saved, and they are going to be because it is God's will and He is sovereign and it will be accomplished. And all you have to add to that is that He actually wants to save everybody.
right. Which, funny enough, is actually what the scriptures say.
Yeah,
And
unless
I've never heard anybody try to refute that one.
well, the Calvinists
um,
they have their ways,
and actually,
but
now that you're speaking of it, like, I think it works pretty well if you quit individualizing it. If you look at it as humanity as a whole, yeah, which actually, trying to recall now, it's been actually a couple years now since I even read Torrance, but that's kind of the way he approaches election, right? It's the human race itself, humanity is elected.
yeah,
Well, if that's the case, through Christ, and so
right,
if that's the case, well, then the tulip applies. It's just not on an individual soul basis; it's the entirety of humanity.
yeah, yeah. I think that universal salvation, universalism, ultimate redemption, ultimate reconciliation, whatever we want to call it, apokatastasis.
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 I'm like Trump trying to say acetaminophen or whatever.
Yeah, it actually works fine in that system. That's one thing that Andrew Huranich,
Yeah.
that's one thing that he does in his book is try to show how really you don't have to change much of anything in your current too much. There are things that have to change, obviously, but like you don't have to, like if you're a Calvinist, you don't have to abandon all Calvinist
Right.
teaching. If you're an Arminian, you don't have to abandon all of that. If you're an open theist, you don't have to abandon any of that. Like,
I mean, actually, universalism fits very well with Tillich. Just
yeah,
depending on how, I mean, it's not what I don't think Tillich would have described himself as a universalist, but it fits neatly in the framework. Like,
yeah, right. Yeah, so there's all kinds of different ways of getting there. And I think that that's true because the because universalism isn't like just made up out of nowhere and forced to fit into Christianity.
right.
It's based on these central tenets of the faith that Jesus came and died and took on the sins of the world and wants to save everybody and loves everyone. And
It really is that easy. It's just as simple as like, is God good?
Right.
Okay, you're a universalist. You don't have to think that hard about it. Like
Right.
it's funny. I think this is the whole universalism talk is a super interesting exercise in how a slight turn of paradigm, like not I'm not even talking about a complete metanoia. I'm talking just a tiny tweak changes everything. Because from
Yeah.
my perspective, what you just said that some people would say about universalism is like you're trying to ram it in there and contort yourself to make it work in Christianity. It's the complete opposite for me. Like
Yeah.
literally the people who are proponents of eternal conscious torment, to me
Yeah.
that's exactly what they're doing. Is they have a certain, there's in most of the time it's not their fault, it's the tradition that they've been handed based on the interpretation of a couple of scriptures here and there, and on just that alone they try to ram it in and interpret everything through that lens, and it doesn't make any sense to me anymore. And
Right.
but you feel like you have to make sense of it because that's what the Bible says. So
Right.
you're, like it
Yeah.
really is like the exact argument that people would use against universalism, that you're trying to you're just twisting yourself in knots to make that work. It's the complete opposite. Like to me, from my perspective, universalism is the most natural thing in the scriptures, and the
Yeah.
eternal conscious torment is literally the one that you've got to contort yourself to make work.
Yeah. I mean, I think that annihilationism is better than eternal conscious torment in that respect. I think it fits neater, but even that, like, I really do think that the only way to make sense of to, in a way that's mm, where it fits, it actually fits. It doesn't feel forced, where it actually fits.
Right.
I think universalism is the only way to make sense of actually just the classic beliefs about who God is and God's character and nature and his power and all of those things, but also with the scriptures. Like, I just feel like the universalist passages have power to do with the annihilation or torment passages.
Right.
That there's a certain power that the universalist passages have to do work with those that the others can't do with universalism.
Right. It's like universalism has a way to work with those scriptures that still kind of makes sense and work in a way that the torment passages can't work with the universalists. It just doesn't
Yes,
make sense.
right.
Like
And the same, I think, is true with the annihilation ones.
right.
You know, whereas I think that the real strength, and that's what it really does boggle my mind. And I don't really debate and argue with people as much about it nowadays, but like I could and I will. Like,
If you want to go, let's go.
like it really does, it just does fit way better, I think.
Yeah.
Like the the annihilation passages, there's tons of them, but I really do think that, like, because the universalist doesn't have to deny those passages or reinterpret them really even that much. I mean, you may have to sort of reinterpret annihilation to mean like the death of your false self, but that's also scriptural, So
Right. Which we've talked about before. I mean, that's kind of what I do with them. It's like,
yeah,
I think there's a way of reading those to where it really does for me everything, or I don't want to say everything, but so much comes down to the way that we just don't know what the Bible is and how to read it, and we're just, like, because I think a lot of that comes down to trying to read it as a univocal text, and we're just trying to make these things go together, and like I think that it's perhaps like it's possible that the annihilation passages in the eternal conscious torment, or annihilation passage and the more universalist passages are saying the exact same thing. They're just told from a different perspective, like to your point about the false self thing, it's totally possible that it's talking about the annihilation of the false self, right? The burning away of that wood, hay, and stubble, which is torment,
right,
but it still ends with the ultimate redemption of everything. Like,
right.
you don't have to explain everything away. You know what I mean? Like,
Where God is all in all.
you don't
Yeah.
have to contort yourself to make that work, but you do if you take all of those to be flat and univocal, because then you're like, well, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like, if you just recognize it's possible they're talking about the same thing just from a different perspective, like that's not even that complicated. I don't understand.
Right. And I mean, but one thing that always really frustrates me, and I actually ended up writing this into that little short, whatever it was that I wrote about universalism. I'm still not done with that. I took a very, very long break from it.
Right.
but I still have some things I want to add to it. But like, if you're going to reinterpret, because that's what everyone has to do. You have if you're Eternal Contest Torment, you have to look at the Annihilation passages and the Universalist passages and sort of reinterpret them to fit your framework.
Right.
Every one of all three of those positions is doing that.
Yes.
So, but like, why start with Eternal Contest Torment and then reinterpret the other ones based on the two Eternal Contest Torment scriptures? Why not start with the Universalist ones and reinterpret the other ones in light of that?
The only answer to that I've ever heard that I was like, I disagree with you, but like I kind of, like I see why you're saying what you're saying is because I heard someone take the stance that that's because they take seriously the tradition that they were handed, and the tradition that they were handed is eternal conscious torment. Like they think that eternal conscious torment has, for the majority of the church history, has been the predominant teaching. That's from their interpretation, and
Right.
so from that perspective, they take the history and the tradition seriously enough to say, this is what the tradition says, so this is the position I'm going with. Now let's make that work. And like, I don't agree with that approach. I don't even agree with necessarily with the premise, but
Yeah.
I hear the point. Like I get it.
Well, like if we're going to talk about from now until the beginning of the church, what has been the most widely held position, then yeah, I think that's probably right. Eternal Contest Torment is. I don't. It wasn't in the earliest days of the church. It was the far minority position, actually. Now whether annihilation or universalism was the dominant in the first 500 years of the church, I think it depends on what we mean. Like, because it's a lot of people throw out these different talking points, whether you're annihilationist or universalist, but like essentially one common claim from universalists is that within the first 500 years, universalism was the most was the most dominant view in the church. And that is true if we're saying in the first 500 years, which
Right.
is the claim,
Right.
but it can be a little misleading because annihilationism is present there. And some have argued that before universalism became the most popular,
Yeah.
annihilationism was.
Yeah.
So you could argue that the initially the most popular was annihilation.
Actually, I'm pretty sure that Jordan Daniel Wood holds the position, even though he is a universalist. He claims that universalism was never the predominant. Pretty sure I heard him say that. But
yeah, he said that. I know he said that he doesn't necessarily buy into the claim that it was dominant.
Yeah.
In the first 500 years.
Right.
But I don't think he said that he
outright just doesn't.
Yeah.
Denies it. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. You're
Yeah.
far more studied on him than I am. So.
But I mean, honestly, some of that just kind of depends on whether.
Right. Well, I mean, for somebody like me, the tradition argument actually has the opposite effect. So.
Yeah. I do think that it's very telling, though, in some of the writings that we have from the first 500 years or so, or not 500 years, but like in the earlier days of the church, like Augustine and Basil the Great, or Basil of Caesarea, maybe that's the same guy. I might be getting my fathers confused, but
there's only so many Basils.
Right. But both of them make a claim that universalism is a widely held view in their time. Depending on how you translate it, Augustine is saying like the majority are universalists in his time, or at least very many. At the very least, he's saying a great number or very many. But you could even think of that as a majority. So either way, I think that it's certainly there, and it's certainly prevalent, and it's certainly popular in the early days of the church.
Right.
Eternal Contest Torment really didn't become the dominant view until
Dante's Inferno.
well, yeah. I mean, for sure by the Middle Ages, but I mean, you could maybe trace it back to Augustine shortly after. Probably. I don't know. I haven't actually looked into that.
I'm not going to look into it, to be honest. Yet another thing I'm not going to study because I don't care.
Yeah. And like I do care about the tradition and stuff like that,
Right.
but not enough to believe something that to me is just unbelievable.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
I have a little bit, I don't know, probably it's just the anti-authority, just my personality. But like I can kind of see the way that power has been used to control people and how
Yeah.
that's been interjected that makes me suspicious of any sort of authority, and so
Yeah.
sometimes I see that the something like a doctrine like eternal conscious torment being injected in to control people with fear, and that just
Hmm.
so I don't really care about the tradition. If anything, I am suspicious of it. Anytime that power
Yeah.
is kind of asserted to make sure that your point is the dominant one, kind of makes me suspicious of it to begin with.
Yeah.
That's just my personality, though. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's valid for sure. Like we can see that in the Fifth Ecumenical Council. I mean, and actually, if you wanted to try to locate a turning point, that's probably maybe as good as any. It's a it certainly contributed to the popularity of the Eternal Condis Torment position because of the Justinian and the supposed condemnation of Origen, which I'm not going to get into all that. I don't really care enough to get into all that right now. Got other
that,
stuff I'd rather talk about,
that'd be
but
a one-man show, to be honest, because I don't know.
if you're interested in learning about the Fifth Ecumenical Council and what was and wasn't condemned and all of that, Father Al Kimmel has a blog, Eclectic Orthodoxy. He's got some. It's a lengthy article, but it's a really good sort of detailed assessment of the history of that.
You should just look at his blogs anyway, because he's got some good stuff on there.
Yeah, he does. There is a fellow that I would like to read his book, but I have so many other things I want to study and look into because I've done so much with universalism and hell and all of that. Like I'm kind of just kind of over it for now,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But there's a fellow named Hunter Coates. He's kind of a younger uh,
I've heard that name before for some reason.
scholar, theologian. Um, he's been on Dave Artman's uh, Grace Saves All a couple times.
I may have heard him there, but I haven't listened to Artman in a while.
But he's got a book called Grace Abounds that I would like to read, and I know he does has a pretty long treatment of the Fifth Ecumenical Council on there.
I haven't listened to Artman in a while because I'm kind of like you to where like this was a big deal for me like a long time ago, but and that I'm just over it at this point. Like I'm so far removed from it. Like I don't want to say I've kind of joked around about just not caring about stuff to look. It's not that I don't care, but I'm just so far removed from it at this point that it's not on my radar anymore. Like Artman's kind of his whole
Yeah.
thing is kind of the universalist thing, and
Right. Well, lately he's been doing a ton of them on fascism.
oh well, I'll have to pick him up then because that's very applicable to our day and age.
Yeah, I didn't know that you weren't still following the Grace Saves All podcast. He's done several on that. He actually yesterday he did one with DBH.
Mm-hmm.
It was a re-recording actually. Um, I don't know. I guess uh, David Bentley Hart. I guess he has some medications that he takes, and one of them makes him really drowsy, and he accidentally took it before they recorded the first time, and so he didn't feel like he was quite as sharp as he should have been.
I can relate.
But what's funny is like I see he just seemed normal to me. I mean, he still seemed
Yeah,
like the smartest guy in the room,
right.
but he
I can also relate to that, but
but they ended up redoing it, and so he released the take two of their conversation on all that authoritarianism and the current regime, the stuff's going on,
right.
and yeah, in current and not current, but in classic DBH style, the he's I heard someone say he's a master of the theological insult. Although this is less theological, it's more just
He's just a wordsmith, really. He's got
yeah,
a way with words.
yeah. He can be a little brash sometimes,
I appreciate it, though.
but yeah,
I mean, I don't think I would appreciate it near as much if I was on the other end of it.
yeah. If you're on the receiving end,
So
it's
I'm
not
not
great.
gonna be on here talking any smack about David. I'm not picking that fight.
No, I shan't be picking any fights with DBH. Uh, but yeah, he's always a good one to listen to. But David Artman, he's had a ton of people on lately talking about fascism and all of that.
I mean, his show's always good. He does a good job. He's a good interviewer. He always has a good conversation. I just only have so much time, you know. There's
Yeah,
so many shows I want to listen to, and I only get so much time to listen to them. So
yeah. You know, I've been trying to educate myself a little bit on fascism, actually, given the current status
can't imagine why.
of America. And yeah, it was pretty crazy, actually, reading through like all of the like, well, you know, fascism is kind of like there's not people who have kind of like Christian nationalism. There's like lots of different people that have different definitions of it,
Right.
you know, and so um, whenever you whenever you read the definitions and you see like like what Chat GPT, when I asked Chat GPT today, I was trying to get a little bit of information, and I've done this before, but I'd kind of forgotten some of it because my brain only has so much space for the things.
Yeah, sometimes it
So
overflows, runs out. I
yeah.
get that.
So I was asking it about it, and it was like, and I don't know, maybe if I wasn't using Chat GPT, it would have said something different. But like all the things that it was describing that are fascist, I was like, check, check, check,
Yeah, I mean,
check.
I don't know how anyone would even deny that at this point. I mean, whenever this is going to bend us totally to the political direction, but whenever you're coming out against Antifa, which literally stands for anti-fascist,
Yeah.
and you're talking down about an anti-fascist group, that's pretty much just saying the quiet part out loud. That's saying, hey, we're fascists. Like, they're not even denying it at this point.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to call anti-fascist anti-American, how are you not equating the two with each other?
Right.
You know, I don't even think we think about that. I certainly don't think he's thinking about that whenever he says that.
Well, I don't think that I don't think people think about it because all they think, which the whole thing, it just pisses me off right off the bat because there's no bankroll of Antifa. It's not even a real thing. It's literally just means you're against fascism. It's anti-fascism. Like there's no
Right.
organized structure or it's not. We're going to go down to the local Antifa meeting tonight. Like it's a kind of a catch-all phrase that's been used to make a them, an other, an enemy, a bad guy that we can point to and say these are the bad guys. But they're anti-fascist. Like that's their whole thing. Like if those are the bad guys, the implication is you are the fascist.
Right. Also, though, I think we talked about this with something else. Oh, well, I think you just talked about it with like leftists in general, leftists, but like, what a turnaround in the dadgum like reputation
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
Antifa.
It's impressive. I
Like,
gotta say.
I mean, just a couple years back, I remember everyone, whenever I first heard of Antifa, all I saw on my Facebook and everything was how, I mean,
See, yeah,
mamby-pambies.
snowflakes.
Yeah. Now they're the super organized, like the greatest terrorist threat to America that exists today.
Right.
What? We're talking about the guys in the dinosaur costumes dancing in the street, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Those people?
The frog.
Oh.
Have you seen the frog?
Oh, it's the frog.
I
That's what
love
I
the
was thinking
frog.
of.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. It's something else, man.
Worse than ISIS. All right. I see.
Something else.
That's that's quite the turnaround.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, everything that you're talking about with the whole fascist thing is kind of what I've been talking. Like I've been kind of trying to sound this alarm for a while about. Like we're we're this is scarier than people think. Like we're in
Yeah.
far more dangerous territory than people realize. Like,
Right.
I mean, I sent it to you actually, but it was a clip of Barack Obama, and he was on a podcast with Mark Maron, and he
Yeah.
was saying, like, can you imagine what Fox News and some of the more right-leaning media outlets and everybody on the right would do if I had sent the National Guard into Texas and
Yeah.
said, well, the crime in Dallas is really out of hand, and I'm going to send the National Guard in to control the law enforcement in Texas. Can you imagine that the way that people would have lost their minds
Right.
if Obama had done that? But now it's just like, I mean, Trump is sending the National Guard into all these blue cities, Memphis and Chicago and Los Angeles and Portland, and nobody cares. Nobody cares. Like,
Yeah.
and it's people. What really ticks me off is that if you were to just say that to somebody who's like a from here that we know, like, I'm not thinking of any person in particular. I'm just thinking about the stereotypical, like, hardcore Trump supporter that lives here in Western Kentucky that we would know.
Hmm.
And you ask them, why are you okay with Trump employing the National Guard into these cities to really control, in a way, it's almost like a martial law kind of thing, right? And they would say, well, because the crime is just out of control, those places are dangerous. They've never been there. They don't know what is happening there. They are seeing this narrative and being like, well, the crime in Portland, Oregon's out of control. Like, when was the last time you were in Portland, pal?
Right. Right.
You don't know what's going on. Like,
Yeah.
that's the weird thing about the internet is we just think that because we have cameras and everybody's got cell phones and we can just look at TikTok and see Portland, like, you think you know what's going on everywhere in the world. You don't know what the hell's going on in Portland, bro. If you are in Calhoun, Kentucky, and you've never been to Portland, you don't know what's happening there. You can see a clip. Somebody can record a clip on their cell phone of a violent thing that is happening, because violence does happen literally everywhere. Even here in
Right.
little old Calhoun, violence happens.
Yeah.
And then you think you'd get this perspective, like, look how violent this city is, bro. There's 100,000 people in this city. Like,
Yeah.
you're seeing one perspective.
Yeah.
You don't know. You don't know. But I mean, that, to me, that's the most, like, I've been saying it since the beginning when he first employed the National Guard in LA and in Washington, D.C. To me, that's the most terrifying thing that I have ever lived through, as far as, like, our government doing something to me, which is even more asinine to me because I've spent my whole life listening to the Second Amendment people waving their "Don't tread on me" flags, saying, well, we've got to uphold the Second Amendment because what if the government tries to tread on us? Where are you? What do you think is happening?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought about that too.
And I'm not calling for violence because I don't think violence is the answer. But what
Right.
I am calling out for is the hypocrisy of it.
Yeah.
Like, I am 30, almost 39 years old, and I have heard that my entire life. And then it happens, and you're like, please tread on me, Daddy.
Right. Yeah. I thought about that the other day. Yeah. I don't know. It's so based on the research that I did, I don't know. I I'm not sure how measured I want to be because I did do
Oh, you already know I'm unhinged. So if I'm unhinged, we're in bad shape.
well, like so based on folks that I've listened to and read, and I did a little bit of looking into it on chat and stuff too. But like, it seems to me that the majority of the experts, because like I'm not an expert, I'm not like an expert in fascism. I don't know a ton about the history, don't know all that stuff, but there are people that are.
Yeah. Yep.
There are people that have dedicated their entire academic careers to studying this thing we call fascism and the history of it, and that know the signs of it and are able to see it coming. And basically, all of them have said that at the bare minimum, we're seeing elements of fascism in this current regime, and it is trending more and more that direction. That's like the people that are being pretty conservative.
Yeah.
That are experts in this.
Right.
Though there are some that have said we have full blown crossed the line into it. This you're seeing it.
You're right.
What you're seeing here is fascism. Now they would want to qualify all of that. I would think based on what I've heard and stuff like because the definition gets slippery and like there's a difference between like Italian versus German fascism, Mussolini versus Nazism, like all of that. There's distinctions and stuff like that, and we would fall more in the category of like the German fascism.
which I think we all know how that turned out. So that's that should give you a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling inside.
Right. But so but I just said that to say that like there are a ton of folks that would argue that what we're seeing right now isn't yet fascism.
Right.
But there are some that have come out and said it outright. I think Jason Stanley is one that has said that, and Robert Paxton, I'm pretty sure, has said. I think he's been saying it since January 6th that that was the turning point in which we crossed over into fascism. But I mean, these are people that are experts in the field. I don't know.
Right.
All I can do is listen to people that do know,
Right.
and that's what they're saying. And it
Right.
seems that like it almost seems like there's a dadgum checklist in the Oval Office of like what do you have to do? And it's like check, check, check. Uh, haven't done that one yet, like
I wouldn't feel probably as strongly as I do if the checks and balances were actually working as they were supposed to. Because I think it's almost undeniable that Trump, I don't really even think he's hidden it. The executive branch is full on like embrace of fascism. Like he is, to me, he doesn't even try to hide it. Like it is. But we have supposedly checks and balances that are in place that are supposed to prevent that from going full blown in that direction. But
yeah,
everything has become so us versus them, partisan wise, that he's skated by without any sort of checks and balances for so long that I am personally afraid that we have tipped the point of no return with that. Now, again, just like you said, I'm no expert either. Obviously, that's just my own like take on it. But I'm afraid that we've allowed they who are supposed to hold him in check have allowed him to get by with so much that it's too far gone at this point. And like what I mean is like the National Guard being deployed into cities. I'm talking about ICE agents that are running around in street clothes and unmarked cars, just kidnapping people off the street. I'm talking about the arrest of journalists, which is hallmark socialism, to where when you start limiting the free press. The Secretary of War,
yeah,
Pete Hegseth, has tried to force the media to censor what they release, only which is, let's all be honest, it's a propaganda. Like he only wants pro us propaganda to come out.
yeah,
I mean, those are all, you know what I mean? Those
yeah,
those are things that are the Supreme Court and the legislative branch are the reason why they exist is to hold that executive power in check,
yeah,
but they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything about it. But which, I mean, it's because personally, I think we have a ridiculous Supreme Court system, but but they're in his pocket. Like he can do what he wants. They're not going to hold him in check. The legislative branch. I mean, I think to me, the perfect example of it is Mitch McConnell, which is, I can't even believe I'm going to say it because I've spent my whole life criticizing the guy, but he's kind of like come at, in the more recent time, not been so like, whatever the Republicans want, I'm for. You know what I mean? And it's
yeah,
because he's like done. He knows he's done. He doesn't have to worry about reelection. He's like, yeah, this crap's real dangerous. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
because he doesn't have anything to lose. I
right,
mean, which you take that for what you want. I think that it's not a great reputation to leave behind if you if you built your whole career on doing what you knew was harmful, but then when you don't
right,
have anything to lose, you kind of turn away from it a bit to kind of ease your way out and try to fix your legacy a little bit. But
yeah,
be that as it may, like there's every once in a while I'll catch a glimmer of hope, right? Because like recently there's been a thing where like they want the government like government agencies to display stuff about the shutdown that blames Democrats, right? Like there was something on the HUD website that talks about how the shutdown is that's pro-Republican, pro the party in power propaganda using government resources to do so. And like I've seen a couple articles today where there was airports were supposed to be playing in their airports, like this propaganda that says like, well, Democrats are to blame for this government shutdown, and this is you. Are you pissed off that your TSA is taking too long? It's a Democrat's fault, and the airports are several of the airports are refusing to do so because that's fascism when you're using government resources to propagate to
Yeah.
propagandize for your political party. I mean, that's
Yeah.
literally what that fits neatly in the fascist camp there. The only chance that we have is stuff like that is resistance, nonviolent resistance, because there's no violence involved in that. It's just
Yeah.
saying we're not going to stand for it. This is wrong and we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's the only chance we have, I think.
Yeah. All the enemy from within rhetoric, all that fits right into that whole fascism playbook. Whenever the lines between your military and your law enforcement become blurred,
Yep.
that's also a sign that's on that checklist,
Right.
And I think we're starting to see that more and more. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's at the very least, and this is where my mind went with it today. I just had a lot of thoughts around it as I was listening to stuff and reading stuff, and it was like, say, like, I know that all of this is more complicated and more nuanced maybe than what we're making it, but I don't know. When you have that many experts saying that at bare minimum we're heading that direction, and someone made a good point today about the term fascism almost being like we don't even take it seriously anymore
Right.
because it's been thrown around as like a
It's almost like the term Nazi, right? Like that's
yeah,
been used as a slander towards people that you don't like for so long that it's
yeah,
kind of lost its true
right,
edge and meaning. It used to really mean something to call someone a Nazi, but it's
yeah.
watered down now.
So it almost makes it like I don't even know if that language is even helpful anymore because I don't know that it's actually connoting the actual seriousness of it.
Right.
But I mean, at it just reminded me of the whole like the boy who cried wolf thing, right? Like, um, we've overused have we overused this term to the point that like when it's actually there about to devour us, we don't even see it.
Right.
Like no one takes it seriously because we've heard it so many times.
Right.
Like, but if it's not here yet, if it is actually not here yet, I don't know. I guess what I was kind of wrestling with was like, would it be better for us to just say it is here to get people to actually
Right.
to just go ahead and make that leap, even if it's not technically, would it be better to just go ahead and make that leap and say it is here so that we can maybe stop it before it does?
I don't
I
think
don't know.
I don't think people care. I just don't think the people that care already care. The people that don't, they're the good guys, man. They're in their eyes, you know what I mean? Like I really don't think people care.
But at what point is it? There has to be a point, right? When folks would see what's going on. Like, what is it going to take? I'm afraid that what it's going to take is going to be the point of no return, where it's too late to notice it now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think, like I said, I don't think, at least from my perspective, in the people that most support it, from you have to remember where I am in the community that I live in, which is 100% Christian, almost 100% white people. They don't care. Like they're not the ones being rounded up by ICE. You know what I mean? Like they're not
Right.
watching their children and their parents being rounded up by ICE. They're not being sent to Alligator Alcatraz. They don't care. I don't think because it's to your point. It's here. Anybody can see it. It's with the internet. It's there, man. Like I don't think it's a matter of seeing it. The people do see it and just don't care. Like I don't know how else you can do it. Like maybe that's just, you know, the difference between you and me, because generally I do have a more bleak outlook on this stuff. But like that's what I see, man. Like I see here recently, it's coming up sometime in Owensboro. They were planning some sort of like No Kings rally protest or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And I've seen like pages that are local to us, you know, like the local news and stuff have been posting stuff about this No Kings rally, which just leave it at that. No Kings. Like, why would anybody not be for that? I have not seen a single person, particularly a person that I know, but I've seen a lot of people I know comment on these articles. Not a single person has said anything good about them. They're all calling them. I've seen people talk about, I hope they protest in the street so I can hit them with cars. I've heard people calling the ones that are going to participate in this protest idiots and dumbasses and stuff like that. Of like, because they don't care. Like their guy is in charge. We don't care. As long as the other team doesn't win, I don't care what my team does. Like, we're the good guys. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't, I have a bleak outlook on it, man. I don't think people care until it affects you, and then it's too late. You know, the whole, they came for my immigrant neighbor, but it didn't affect me, so I didn't care. They came for my LGBTQ neighbor, but it didn't come for me, so I didn't care. And then when they came for me, there was no one left to stand up for me because I was the last one left. Like, we don't care until it affects us, and then it's too late.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about it with the whole I don't remember how we talked about it, the one-upmanship, you know, of like,
Yeah.
that's a huge factor in it too, right? Because it's what about like, who cares how bad we are? What about them? Like, who cares that we're like literally on the brink of civilization collapse because when Obama was president 16 years ago, like, it's insane, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you can't tell, I got a pretty negative outlook on it.
Yeah. And I don't have as negative an outlook as you do.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hope, like, people may be thinking that we're overreacting, that we're full of crap. I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. Maybe. I hope.
And again, I'm trying to educate myself on it. I've really tried to make a real concerted effort lately to do my best to gather information on things like this and in the most unbiased way I possibly can.
Right.
I'm really trying hard to not just hear one side or the other. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that's getting any better. I feel like maybe it's helping me talk about it in ways that's more charitable. I don't know that it's making me feel any. I don't know.
Yeah.
Any better about it.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not afraid to just say it. Like, I have done research. I've begun the research process into an exit plan. Like, like immigrating out of the United States. What am I going to do to get my family out of here? I have had that talk with my wife. We are on the same page, and we have already looked into the different options available. Like, we have started looking at that process. That's where we're at with it. Like, it's that serious to me. That like, and I'm not afraid to say that. Like, it's because we're talking about, and I've said this before. It's one thing for if my future's bleak, but I've got a 4-year-old son who's got ideally a whole life ahead of him.
Yeah.
And I'm a straight white Christian man. So I can skate under the radar and be okay. But if the propaganda is so skewed to the propagating that it makes my son is going to grow up indoctrinated to become bigoted and racist and all of these things that are associated with the way that I see us trending, right? Anti-woke. Like, I would rather leave this country and my son grow up in a place that's going to make him a loving, um, that's going to help me mold him into a loving, accepting, good person. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Because he's at an age to where, like, his environment, he's going to school now. Like, I don't know what they're going to teach at school, but like, fascist indoctrinate children with their own, like, again, to the whole German socialist thing. They had a whole, like, Hitler Youth thing going on. You know what I'm saying? Because they know that the way that you hook people in is you indoctrinate them with their children. Like, that's easy. That's easy money. That's low hanging fruit, right? They've already started doing it, I think, in schools with the whole, in Oklahoma, trying to teach the Bible within schools, because it's not that I have a problem with the Bible, but I do have a problem depending on how, because you can use it to justify dang near anything. You
Right.
know what I'm saying?
Depends on how it's taught. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, like, they've already started trying to destroy that wall between our public education and the government and the religion that they want to propagandize and push in a certain way. Like, I don't like their Christianity. Quite frankly, I've said it before. I don't know if I said it on here. I've said it to you. I know, but I would rather my son grow up an atheist than a Christian nationalist. Quite, like, full stop. I mean that. That's strong language, and I mean it with my full soul.
Yeah.
Because I think that an atheist is more Christian than a Christian nationalist. That's more Christ following than a Christian nationalist is, in my opinion. And so, from at least the way that I interpret Christianity and the way of Jesus. And so, I don't want them brainwashing my child with their form of that antichrist religion. You know what I'm saying? And so, if that means I have to leave this country for the future of my son as a human being, I'll do it. I will destroy my whole life for that. I will give everything up that I have to ensure that my son grows up to be a good person and lives a good life. Like, I don't care. I would give all my money away. I would give this house away. I would literally give my life to make sure that he doesn't grow up to be a hateful, angry bigot. Full stop.
Yeah. I feel you. Although that's empathy, and that's a sin.
If empathy is a sin, I sin boldly and proudly.
Yeah. I have actually thought about getting one of those. Don't they have like the coffee mugs and stuff that say like empathy is my favorite sin or something?
Yeah, if empathy is a sin, then you can count me the chief of all sinners, to borrow the language of Paul. Boldly.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a crazy one.
I mean, and the whole conversation that because it is strong language to say, I would rather my son grow up an atheist than Christian nationalist. But that is an interesting conversation about, like, what what all that entails. Because to me, the reason why I say that is, to me, it's antithetical to Christ. It's literally, we've already talked about the Antichrist in this episode, right? To me, that's what it is. It's Antichrist. And so, like, I don't really care much for all the religious, like, official religious language. I care about the way of Christ. Like, I'm not overly religious in the churchianity kind of way. I'm a follower of the way of Jesus, or I try to be. That's what I aspire to live my life by. And I don't think you need all the religious language to attach to that, And so, from that perspective, yeah, that's what I mean. That, like, I don't want my son to grow. I would rather my son grow up with no religion than an antichrist religion, because I think an antichrist religion paints you the opposite of Christ. You grow up with no religion, you can still follow you don't need religion to follow Christ. That's, I mean, in my personal, I think that a lot of people would disagree with me on that. I don't really care, but
Yeah, it's definitely stronger language than I would use.
right.
But yeah,
But we're different. I mean, we're at different places,
yeah,
So
that's why I say I feel you
yeah,
rather than I agree.
right.
But yeah, that actually made me think about something else. Something I told you before we started this that I had something I was going to ask you, and then
Yep.
I didn't do it.
Yeah, you said, I'm gonna wait to put you on the spot till we have a live microphone in front of your face.
Well, do you want to stay with the whole fascism thing?
Oh,
Have
we
you
can do
said
it.
all you want to
I've
say
said
about it?
but I can go all night. So if we're gonna pivot, we need to pivot.
Yeah, I don't know. I plan this. I guess the last thing I'll say on the fascism thing is I do plan on trying to educate myself more on it. And again, I hope and pray that we're wrong. But
Amen.
amen. Uh, yeah. What I was going to ask you is if you had watched any of the Surrounded with Ally Beth Stuckey.
Only so I watched the Tim and April follow up to it, so I
Yeah.
seen like the clips that they had used in their like follow up of it, but that's all I've seen of it. I kind of hate the show, to be honest. So
Yeah. I've watched maybe half of it at this point. Um, yeah, I just started listening. I started listening to it again. I have to do it in bites because it kind of annoys me.
well, that's why I say I kind of hate the show, and I want to clarify what I mean. I don't mean I hate the Tim and April show. I love that one.
Yeah.
But the whole concept of I think it's called Jubilee, where you've got the one person who's like the guest or the main whoever, and then they're surrounded by the people that are trying to debate them, which I kind of hate. I've already said on the show before I hate debates anyway, because I don't feel like there's any real good, meaningful discussion that actually occurs in a debate. But then this is even worse because you have like a couple of minutes and then you can get voted out. So you've got this person trying to yell at this person and they're not even talking about the same thing and they're constantly pivoting and just trying to dance around each other. And
Yeah.
I don't think it gets anywhere. I hate it.
Right.
Unless you want to have me on there, and then I'll do it.
It's
So I'm a sellout.
yeah. I mean, I guess I would go on there, maybe. I mean, it would have to be a topic that I really knew my stuff on.
I would
But
probably not actually because I'm just not built for that kind of like I'm the kind of person that like I want to be nonviolent, but I've said before that my personalities I, I could get frustrated enough to smack a man for sure.
yeah, those conversations are frustrating, I think, because they're not even conversations.
Yeah.
Like what you were just pointing out. Like you have maybe 2.5 minutes with this person and you're talking over each other and nothing actually ever gets, the questions never actually even get fully stated and answers and responses never actually get said or responded to.
Although,
It's just frustrating.
did you watch the Tim and April like follow up to it?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you seen the part where he like set her up and she took it hook, line, and sinker?
I don't remember what it was about, but I remember that being a thing.
Well, she started. I don't remember like what the topic was, but she was talking about different. Well, there's when you take the context of this and do it like this, and then she got to the whole end of it, and Tim's like, yeah, and that's how us progressives tackle LGBTQ issues in the Bible, and she was like that was perfect. It was because you could even see it on his
Yeah.
face while she was
Yeah.
speaking. He knew like, oh, I was hoping you would take that, and you did. Like
Yeah.
that was masterful.
Yeah, I actually do remember that now that you said that because she was it was one of those things where like, the point that a lot of the people that are more affirming or think that scripture doesn't rule out homosexual relationships and stuff like that would say that the uh, the historical and cultural context is incredibly important for understanding those passages in Romans and in First Corinthians and Leviticus and all the all the relevant passages.
Right.
And then ends up getting that ends up getting kind of dismissed by certain folks, and then but yeah, that was the point. I'm doing a really bad job of kind of restating it, but essentially when is like if you're going to say that the context matters here, then the context matters over here too,
Right.
and you can't just decide, oh, it was on slavery.
I was going to say, I was thinking it was slavery,
Yeah.
but I was so distracted by the just absolutely abhorrent clip that they played from John MacArthur that it was hard for me to focus on anything else.
Yeah, that was a rough one, huh? Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, it was I suppose it's possible that it was taken out of context. I guess, but it was pretty rough. It's one of those things where like I'm not sure what he could have said before this that would make it okay, but maybe. Maybe. Basically sounded to me like he was kind of taking the whole Doug Wilson approach of like slavery wasn't that bad, and actually, for some people, slavery was the better option. It'd be better for them to be slaves than to be free and out on their
Right.
own, and at least they're getting three squares, and if your master's a nice guy, then it's fine. It's fine to own another human being as long as you're nice to them.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not even going to give him the benefit of the doubt that you are. I think that was just abhorrent, disgusting, and that's all I can say about it. He's passed now, so I don't want to say anything more negative about the deceased, but
Be
may
nice,
God have mercy on your soul. I will say that.
be nice, masters. Yeah. Um, I did find myself getting a little aggravated with Tim and April in that episode, though. I don't feel like that. There were times whenever I can't actually remember specific examples right now off the top of my head, but I remember there being some times when I was like, I don't know, you guys are being super fair here, but yeah, I mean, I usually do watch Tim and April,
Yeah.
and I enjoy it. It's entertaining for me, but I don't always agree with them.
Yeah. I I mean that's probably just like I'm more in line with them than probably you are just in general. So like
Yeah,
I really very rarely would I hear anything out of them and just be like, yeah, I definitely disagree with that. You know?
it's more some of the Bible stuff that I was kind of like, I don't know if I agree with you on that. Um, on this last one, but I can't remember a
I
specific
think
example.
if I'm thinking correctly, because me and you have kind of talked about this before, but he was more, it was probably along the lines of slavery because he was pretty much like, Paul affirmed slavery, like straight up. If you're
Oh,
taking this and, me and you talked about it on this podcast, like you kind of have a different approach to that whole passage that he was talking about there. So that was probably part of it. But I agree with him actually on that. Like I do think that Paul, I just don't think, I think Paul was a product of his time.
hmm, maybe. I
But
mean, it.
I don't have any way of. I mean, the way that you interpret it's fine, I guess. Like I don't have it. Like we've talked about that before. Like I'm not going to disagree with you. I guess I don't care.
Yeah, the whole thing for me, the question for me on that particular issue, what it comes down to for me is, do I believe Paul really did have a life-changing encounter with the person of Jesus? The kind of encounter that changed him as a person forever.
I don't know that. I don't know that you have to take it that far. I mean, you've had a life changing encounter with Jesus, right?
Yeah,
But you're not perfect, right?
I'm not
Like you don't
perfect,
have it
no.
all figured out. I mean, you're still a product of the time that you live, and you're influenced by. You know what I mean? Like there, who knows what we're going to come is going to be 1,500 years from now, they're going to look back on some of the stuff that we've said here and been like, well,
I mean, yeah, maybe. To your point, sure, maybe. It does seem to me that, and it could just be because I am a product of my time, but it seems to me that something like slavery is so anti-Christ that I would question whether you really had that encounter if you still supported it after the fact.
yeah,
But I don't know. Maybe that is right. Maybe I'm just reading back into that my own current cultural
right.
outlook.
I mean, I think that
But
there's been a lot of people that were I guess you would call good people, that were true believers in the way that just were influenced by their time. They did a lot of things that we would now look back on, and like maybe the way that they've treated people of color, the way that they treated
yeah,
LGBTQ people, and we would look back at it now and be like, that's kind of disgusting. But like at their time, they were actually kind of progressive. Like I
right.
actually listened to a podcast the other day. It's the first episode I listened, and I actually kind of enjoyed it. It was called the Skeptic's Bible Study, and it was, they're going through talking about, and they were actually, the whole reason why I listened to it was because it was about First Timothy 2, and they were talking about how Paul didn't write that book because it's literally anti-Paul, like, and they were talking about how Paul while today's standards he wouldn't be considered a feminist or anything, but like he was progressive. Like
Yeah.
the things that he actually did right in regarding like women that aren't even disputed, Pauline letters, like it was progressive for the time that he was living in, but for now it's not progressive. You know what I mean? Like compared to the people that exist now. And so
Yeah.
yeah, the whole point being like maybe you're right. I don't know. I don't have a way of like proving you wrong, and I wouldn't be interested in doing so anyway. But like that's just not the way that I tend to look at it. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't even actually the one. I mean, I did disagree with him on that, but I mean, that wasn't even the one that I was
Yeah. Well, that was just
thinking.
the one that
But
came to mind because I remember when I listened to it, I thought that you would probably take offense with what he said there. Not really
yeah,
offense, but maybe just be like, I don't think I agree with you there.
yeah, I wasn't offended, but I didn't agree. But yeah, there was a certain, I don't even remember, like I said, I don't remember
Yeah.
specific examples, but I just remember there being some things that I did disagree with them on or thought that maybe they were being a little too hard on Allie with. Um, yeah, I mean, I thought that she was for sure prepared. Um, I think she did a good job of kind of holding her own and presenting that perspective, whether you agree with it or not,
Right.
you know. But I just gotten to because, like I said, I've been listening in bite-sized
Yep.
portions.
All you could swallow at once.
Yeah, and I started the section where she talks about empathy on my way over here, and so I was thinking about that because I said I feel you earlier, I was like, oh yeah, I guess that's empathy and that's a sin. But
Yeah, like I said, I didn't watch the show and I'm not gonna. I've seen all of it. I need to really. I think all of it. I care to see. I don't really care enough to. I like you. It would be frustrating for me, and I don't have any reason to subject myself to that.
yeah, well, I don't know. I guess I'm a glutton for punishment. I enjoy. I don't even know if I enjoy it. Actually, that's the wrong wording. It's more like I feel a responsibility or an obligation to subject myself to things that I know I may disagree with
Right.
for the sole purpose of just hearing it, hearing it out. Um, and I don't know, depending on what we're talking about, I maybe did. There was plenty of things that Allie did that I didn't agree with the tactics that she took and the interpretations of the scriptures that she offered. I had plenty of disagreements, but I didn't disagree with her on everything she said. I thought she made some solid points on some things, and I thought she made some really crappy points on others, and I don't think she made any points on other things.
I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul. I mean
But
that tracks for me. Like just knowing you as well as I know you, like it's what I would expect out of you.
yeah,
And I don't mean that condescendingly. I mean literally. That's just what I would expect out of you. As a
yeah,
you're sort of a middleist, centrist, one would say. So I wouldn't expect you to
yeah,
be like, I just hate everything that she said. Now somebody like me,
yeah. Yeah, I don't. It's
yeah. I mean, there's the only part of me that feels like, and I don't feel any responsibility, and I'm not going to watch it. But the only part of me that would is just for this show, like so that we could talk about stuff and like be educated enough to talk about it. But like just personally, I don't. I don't care. I don't care about. I was gonna say I don't care about her as a person. Sure, I do, but like her point, her theology, or where she's, I don't care. Just don't.
yeah,
I'm more interested. Like I will subject to your point about listening to voices that you don't necessarily agree with. Like I'm not opposed to listening to people that I don't necessarily agree with, but on a lot of the topic, like social topics that she tends to be focused on, I just don't care. Like right now, I'm more interested. Like I'm more interested in listening to people on like Christology or stuff like that I
yeah,
may disagree with, but still want to. I'm interested in learning more about their viewpoint and like that. I will listen to somebody that I don't necessarily agree with, but like on whether you think marriage is between one man or one woman, I don't give a damn. Like I don't care.
yeah. One thing that was pretty frustrating in what she was doing is that she would, I think maybe in all three of her claims, she ended up having to redefine the claim, to like state it in a different way, because the, whenever someone would make a solid point, she would end up basically just like and taking the initial claim and changing it.
Right.
You know?
Well, just redefining things. I mean, that's why I hate debates in general. Is because the whole point is to win the argument. Like, and I'm not as someone who is only reason why I would listen to something like that is to try to like learn and be, like it's just not conducive for anything. Like, just winning the argument is not what I'm not interested in seeing who can win an argument. I don't care about that. Like, I want to know
Right.
about the topics that you guys are talking about.
Yeah, just because you win the argument doesn't mean you're right.
Right. Like, I'm far more interested in like hearing like a long form conversation of two people that are going to sit down and have some sort of like constructive conversation that we can actually learn something from.
Yeah. Um, the empathy thing I thought was just really weird, because it sounded to me like it's not empathy itself, but like there is a point in which empathy can become toxic. Almost like there's like you can be this empathetic, but then if you cross this line,
Right.
then, but like, isn't that just kind of like, I don't think that that's unique to empathy though. Like an excess of anything can be dangerous.
Right. And it's, to me, that one's actually even weirder because I can, to your point, like, I mean, it's the same thing with like masculinity, right? Toxic masculinity is a thing, but that doesn't mean all masculinity is toxic. It just
Right.
means there's a certain amount that where you cross this line into toxicity with it. You know what I mean? But like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to proclaim to be a follower of Jesus Christ, to proclaim that any amount of empathy is toxic is a little bit weird for me. Like,
Yeah.
it seems like he wasn't a person who dealt much in moderation. Like he was pretty balls to the wall, let's say, like sold out all the way in on this whole compassion thing. At least the Jesus that, as I understand him, like
Yeah.
literally to the point of death and forgiving as he's dying, forgiving the people murdering him, like literally as empathetic as you can possibly get. So just
Yeah.
to like kind of proclaim that you're going to follow him, like I am making him the Lord, the ruler over my life, feels a little weird to me if any amount of empathy is considered toxic.
Right. Yeah. And like I said, that wasn't her claim. Her claim was that there is a point in which it can become, but it's not, empathy itself is not
Right.
toxic or bad. Basically, what she was really trying to say without saying it is that if you feel for someone to the point where you refuse to call sin sin, like if you empathize with someone who is part of the LGBTQ community, to the point where you refuse to be like, hey buddy,
Right.
hey gal, that's a sin, then like that's when it becomes toxic empathy. That's what she was trying to say
Yeah.
without actually saying it.
Well,
But
I think that position is toxic. So,
right. I mean, yeah. I mean,
but
it would,
you understand why I would say that more than the people watching, because me and you have had
yeah,
a talk. You know more about where my theology lies. Like, I literally don't believe that you can love God apart from loving your neighbor. Like,
yeah,
that is how you love God, is by loving your neighbor. Like, it's not
right,
about, oh, you got to call out the way they're living their life. Like no, it's literally about love. I actually posted something to my story the other day that said, like my Instagram story. It was like, literally, the more I study and the older I get, the more I come to understand that the whole test, the totality of the test, is how well you love other people. Like,
right,
that's my theology. So,
right. And like you could have discussion and debate and disagreement over what is and isn't loving, I guess, but it definitely isn't hate, right? I
right.
mean, at the very least, we can agree on that.
I don't even necessarily
So,
have to use the word loving. I think it's just about treating people well, treating people right, treating people the way you want to be treated. Like, I mean,
right.
straight up, it's just treating people well. You don't even
Yeah.
have to use the word love, because people do try to get weird about that love as if it's a confusing thing. But
Yeah. Well, and I only brought up the LGBTQ stuff because, like, I was just
Yeah.
almost positive that's where she was
Yeah. Well, I mean,
thinking in her
it
mind.
was a good example because yeah,
But
you're right.
like you, I mean, you really, I think that the point holds pretty much in any instance. Like there's, and it does become a question of is that love or not? Because like they're like parents that are overbearing or overprotective, like in their mind they're doing this out of love, but it can cross a line into being harmful. And um in your personal relationships, like sometimes you aren't as truthful as you need to be for the sake of maintaining peace in the relationship. You know what I mean? Sometimes,
Yeah.
like depending on what the relationship is, like if you have a family member that you have like strong disagreements about, you might downplay those disagreements for the sake of keeping the peace and like not
Right.
speak as honestly as you maybe would if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, the whole argument, especially around the LGBTQ stuff, is so weird to me because, like, to me, in no situation do you like, oh, the most loving thing I can, the way I love my neighbor well is to make this person feel like shit. Like, it literally, it's not even that difficult, man. Like, but it's because we've made a separate, and you'll probably disagree with this. It's fine, but from my perspective, it's all because we've made a segregation between loving God and loving neighbor. And you love God by rejecting sin, and sometimes that means you reject your neighbor. And like that just doesn't work. Like for me, that's nonsense. Like to me, that's idol worship. So
right, I think that, I mean, I don't know why you would think I would disagree with that. I think that
well,
loving God and loving your neighbor are the same
the
thing.
only reason why I say I thought you would disagree with that is because I explicitly state that like I don't think there is a love God apart from love neighbor. Period. Like I don't think you can make that distinction. There's no segregation. To try to like the human race is the image of God that we have. Like any other image of God that you have is an idol. It's a graven image. It may not be graven in wood or steel or stone, but it's engraving in your imagination and in your mind. Like the only image of God that we have is the human image. So, like, to try to worship or love a god externally that's separate from human to me is idol worship. Like, that's the part of it I thought you would disagree with.
Well, but that's not what you said the first time, though.
Well, that's
You
what I
didn't
meant.
add all of those caveats to it.
Right.
I,
That's
di-
what
I
I
did
meant.
disagree with some of that.
Right.
But what I don't disagree with is that to love your neighbor is to love God, and to
Right.
love God is to love your neighbor. Like
Yeah.
I do agree with that.
I mean, I didn't mean to imply that, but yeah. Anyway.
Well, I don't even remember. I sent you a list of things I was thinking about today. Did we cover them all?
I
Do you
think
remember?
we did cover them all. Pretty sure.
Yeah.
We talked about Antichrist.
Yeah.
We talked about politics.
Yeah. Talked about fascism.
We talked about fascism. Um, yeah, I think that's all that
Talked
you
about
said.
the surrounded thing.
I told you I've pretty well been thinking about everything, so we'll
Yeah.
be here all night if we talk about where my mind's been.
Yeah.
It's been good though. You know, I kind of so I don't even really know how this got started for me, to be honest. But I kind of got to a point to where I was like, certain things aren't working for me anymore. But like, I don't want to just define what I am by what I disagree with. You know what I mean? Like there comes a point when you got to be like, it's easy to say I don't believe in this, I don't believe in that, I don't believe in this, but like then what do you believe? You know what I mean? There comes a time when you got to kind of like, okay, well what I reject all this other stuff. What is it that I do believe? And so I kind of got to that place to where I was like, I need to figure that out. You know, like not figure it out, but just kind of organize it because we've talked about before how theology all ties together, like and you can't just take a part of it and rethink that and reimage it without it affecting everything else, but you can only think of things like one at a time, so it's really easy to like reimage what it is you believe over here without even realizing how it affects these other aspects until you get to that, and then if you reimage that, that's gonna, because it's all circular, you know, it all ties in together.
Right.
And so I decided that I was going to sort of like just what do I believe comprehensively? Not that I'm ever going to like flesh out all the details of it in this one thing, but like on the high points, like how does this all work together to make so I'm not just spewing nonsense. The one thing I want to have is a cohesive, make something somewhat make sense, that there's not things over here and things over here and there's no way to put them together. Like, I want to make
Right.
sure that I have a cohesive theology. And so what I started with is I went to ChatGPT because I have an extensive history of conversations with it, and was just like, based on all of the conversations that we've had from the beginning of time until now, I would like for you to put together like an outline of my theology. Like, what is it? And so it kind of started with, it suggested like the headings of like 6 or 7 different sections. And then it would take it section by section and was like, but you've told me this and this and this and this that fits under this section. Do you agree with all this? Or would you like to, and then I would like clear some things up, or like, no, I kind of changed my mind on that. And it sort of worked itself out into this nice, neat little outline thing. Like I shared some of it with you. It was a little bit different because the one that I'd looked at was like bulleted and it was like real concise. And the one that I'd sent to you, it had kind of formatted it into like paragraphs. But it was good to kind of see all of that, even for someone like me who has it all up here, but to see it all laid out in one kind of thing. But then what all that did was just get me running on all this other stuff of like, okay, now I've got these high points, but how am I going to fit all this together? How does this all work into one cohesive unit of theology? And so really I've been just literally all over the place, like just trying to flesh out like what is my theology, and then that led me into the Tillich stuff because I'd only done a minimal research into Tillich and knew that some of the stuff had an overlap with him, but like the more that I had learned about him, the more I realized how Tillichian my thoughts were without even reading him, like just naturally, which is almost kind of exciting in a way because like I've been doing my own thing for so long that it's kind of nice to find someone else that's like already thinking in the same way that you've been thinking, but has it an extensive history and has it all laid out and has good
Right.
language to put to it, a
Yep.
way of fleshing it out that I haven't gotten to yet myself, so it's kind of exciting so I've been, reading a lot on Tillich and some of his thoughts and how it's really helped me kind of word stuff and flesh all this stuff out. So,
Yeah.
but that's just a long story of saying that it's caused me to be like literally looking at everything from like God to Jesus and atonement theories and uh, you name it, I've thought of it.
Right.
Actually, I said that, it was funny because I said that to you today. We were talking about topics and I was like, buddy, my mind has been all over every topic. If you can think of it, I've already thought about it this week, so we can talk about anything. And then the first thing that you said to me after that was like, I've been thinking a little bit about the Antichrist, and I was like,
I
actually,
found it.
that's the one thing I have not been thinking about. But yeah, so
Yeah. I found it.
you did.
I found the one. Yeah. Um, yeah. But it is really interesting. Like even just what the little bit of like disagreement that we had just a minute ago kind of shows this. It's interesting how I think in our minds we disagree with each other more than we do.
Yeah,
Because like whatever you sent me, what you sent me, I was like, and even like some of the Tillich stuff that I've looked at and the stuff that you've sent me on Tillich, I'm like, yep, 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 yep,
right.
yep. And it's like there's very few. I mean, the thing is, the disagreements that are there are big
Yeah,
ones,
that's exactly what I was going to say.
but
It's like, and that's what I mean, we kind of talked about this the last time we recorded, but off air after we'd stopped recording, that like we have real disagreements, and in some areas they're big disagreements, like important disagreements.
yeah,
But in a lot of ways, we still end up with a similar theology. Like we are still dedicated to the way of Jesus, and ultimately, like I think that's the ultimate goal for both of us. Like I mean, I think in a lot of ways, like the main thing we agree on, and we end up in a lot of the same places. We just the way that we go about doing it is vastly different, and in some ways, I think that's why it feels like we're so far apart, is because the things are so big and so important, right? Like one of the big disagreements that we have, just to throw it out, like give an example, is like the divinity of Jesus, right? Like you're more traditional, you believe in the incarnation, that Jesus is the literal incarnation of God, right? Like I think that's you would agree with that. Like
Yeah.
I don't I don't think it makes sense. Like I take a more Talikian approach. Like to me, God is the ground of being, and like he's quoted as saying something to the effect of like to take the incarnation in Jesus literal is to make it absurd and idolatrous. And like I like yeah, I think that can be true. As if you have a model of God that is Talikian, the ground of being, the way he formalizes that is just nonsense, and it's what I mean. So like but that's a huge difference, and not just huge theologically, but emotionally, right? Because that's a big deal for you, like emotionally, that like you think Jesus is God. So for someone like me to be like, I don't think that's true, like that's an emotional reaction that you're having to that. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so even though we end up in the same place, like that emotional reaction is makes it feel like it's bigger than it probably actually is, considering that we work ourselves out in the same, we end up in the same place anyway.
Right. Yeah. The question of I don't have it all worked out. So what I was gonna say is like the question of the literalness of it, I guess depends on what we mean by literal, and I guess it depends on what we mean. Like, I don't know that you could prove or disprove, I guess, that the historical Jesus was the one that's written about in Scripture, the one that all these claims,
Right.
this high Christology of Paul and John
Right.
that is in the Scriptures. I don't like. I'm not saying that I know for a fact that we could demonstrate that to be true historically. I don't know
Right.
necessarily, um, but I do have faith
Right.
that that's the case.
Right. I mean, I would say probably if you're being honest and serious, most people would say, well, you can't prove that or disprove it, to your point. Like, yeah, I would agree with that, actually.
Yeah. And so it's not, I just wanted to make that distinction. Like, whenever we say literal, I don't necessarily mean that, like, I think you could prove it
Yeah.
on historical, literal level. But I also think that my faith isn't really, maybe it is, maybe it isn't dependent on that.
Right.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, when I said literal, I didn't mean for it to be taken in a way of like, this is something that could be proven and demonstrated. I just mean that you think that the person Jesus was the incarnation of God in the flesh.
Yes. Yeah.
That I use the word literal because I'm again framing my theology around the Tillich language, which doesn't he is strong into symbology. Like the people that don't know much about Tillich don't have no idea how much emphasis he puts on symbology. And so like for him, the incarnation is a symbol, right? So it's not like he himself, I don't think would say I deny the incarnation, but he does not take it to be literal in any sense. Like he doesn't think that the historical Jesus was God in the flesh. He thinks that is a symbol that points to a truth inherent to all of
Hmm.
us, which is, basically what I believe. So
Right.
that's what I use literal in that sense. That like even if it's by faith, you think that the human being Jesus was God in the flesh, which is
Right.
the traditional Christian confession. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to downplay the difference.
yeah,
There is a real difference there. I really do think um that like when I talk about Christ and when I talk about God, when I talk about the Trinity, the second person of the Trinity, I am talking about a human being
right,
that we know of as Jesus that we find in the scriptures. So, yeah, that is what my faith is in, and that is what I believe. Um, I also believe that God is the ground of being
Right.
rather than a being among beings.
That's one I still haven't figured out.
I know. And
It's
I
like
don't know that I haven't figured out either,
it's actually
but
one that if I'd had hair, it makes me want to pull it out. But I don't. Luckily, I don't have hair. Like I told you, like to me, and I understand that you have a. I'm sure that you have a way of like making sense of it. But to me, it's literally akin to saying Jesus or God is genderless and male. Was this like okay? What does that mean? Like, how do you like that? That to me, that just doesn't make any sense. And that's why but that's because I'm approaching this the ground of being from the Talikian approach. That's why he says to literalize the incarnation is to make it absurd. It's like that doesn't make any. It's literally like saying God is genderless and male simultaneously. It doesn't make any sense. Like
yeah, and that is really kind of why I think I do lean into the absurdity a little bit. Like
yeah,
I won't pretend that the claims that Christianity makes aren't absurd.
right.
They absolutely are. But the I guess the difference for me is, does something seeming absurd, and does that disqualify it from being worthy of my faith and my belief? And for me, it doesn't. But
Yeah, I think that that just depends on your experience maybe and your like you said you can't make sense of it perhaps in a like theological way. I think you've said this to me before. Like you couldn't sit down and explain to me how that makes sense, but something within you just knows it to be true, and so you
yeah,
have it, that helps you have faith that it's true, right?
right,
And like to me, I just don't have that. Like I don't. It just doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
but what I would, and this is kind of where I was thinking about this before. It's kind of got a little bit aggravated with you over the weekend about the whole like you. It was really just the way you worded it, to be honest. If I'm being honest about it, but like it's not that I don't because it seems like when we've had this conversation before, you're like willing to accept this mystery, right? And you kind of lean into that. But then the counter to that is like, I'm not open to mystery. And like, as if everything that I believe, I've got it all figured out and it has to make perfect sense. And like, that's just not true either. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, even over the weekend, we were talking about like my view, and you were like, well, from this view, then how did God create the universe? And I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't have an answer for that. I'm comfortable with not knowing the answer to that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just we're comfortable with the mystery in different ways. Like I'm not going to. I can't ignore something that just absolutely doesn't make sense to me. Something that contradicts itself. Like I don't have, to me, I can't just ignore that and be like, well, this makes absolutely no sense to me, but I'm just going to believe it anyway. You know what I mean? But there are things that are just a mystery to me that I don't have an answer for. And maybe I will have an answer for them someday, but I don't. And so I am comfortable with the mystery, just with different things and in different ways. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, I think I've said to you in that same conversation, like, I would be a terrible apologist,
yeah,
honestly. Like, I'm not like, I mean, on some things, I think I am somewhat equipped for that. But like, when it comes to those mysteries, those paradoxes, I don't really know that I can explain, at least right now, at least with the level of understanding and study and stuff that I've done
right.
to this point. I don't know that I could explain it any better. But it really is like, and you said this, but just to put it in my own words, it's like it's not a position or a stance that I can defend, but it is a core conviction that I can't shake.
Right. And I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't, I've said this to you before. I'm not convinced, I'm not interested in convincing you otherwise, to be honest.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that I would be interested in convincing you otherwise if you had what I would consider a toxic faith. But like, I think that like I said, because we end up in the same place, which ultimately for me is love God, love neighbor.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's where you end up. That's where I end up. I don't care how you get there. Like, I'm not interested in trying to destroy your faith or to try to make you deconstruct something that doesn't need to be deconstructed.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean I can change my mind, right? Like from my perspective, and I don't mean for this to come across as like I'm further along the journey because that's not necessarily how I mean it, but it's one of those things for me. that we've talked about before. We've both actually said this before. So, like, once you see it, you just can't unsee it. You know, like
Yeah.
for me, to like, I can't unsee you know what I mean? So, like, it's not,
Right.
I can't go back to that. It doesn't work for me anymore, but I'm not interested in changing your mind either. You know, like, as long as we still end up just in a healthy place. Now, if you start being a jerk about it, we may have a different stance, but
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess the key there would just be for both of us to be open.
right.
But yeah. Yeah, it is something that like my mom has been asking for like Christmas uh gift ideas or whatever, and I'm gonna donate. I want to donate half of whatever it was that she was gonna give me to something. And then the other half, like I just want books. So I have several books on Christology that I was gonna get and try to understand. Like I put that The Light of Tabor by David Bentley Hart
Yep.
on the list, and I do want to work through Chris Green's Christology trilogy. The third one's supposed to be coming out next year, so I figure if I get
I'm like 8 pages away from finishing. So,
really, I figured I asked for the first one,
mhm.
the aesthetic Christology, and I figured I'd read that, and then I mean, if you don't have any use for it after that, I'll just borrow yours,
Yeah, for sure.
and I might end up buying it after I read it anyway, but and then I'll probably buy the third one when it comes out.
Yeah. I mean, David Bentley Hart, you mentioned him with his Christology book. That's the one that I've been kind of focused on the last couple of days of trying to, because he's somebody who affirms, he doesn't use the term ground of being for God, but he claims that God is being itself. But he also affirms the traditional Christian Orthodox, like he's an Orthodox Christian, so he affirms the Trinity. He thinks that Jesus, the being, Jesus, is the incarnation of God, who isn't a being, but is being itself, right? And so that's, to use your language, paradoxical. Like from my
Hmm.
language, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But I respect the intellect of David Bentley Hart too much to be like, well, he's just talking nonsense just because I don't understand it. So
Right.
I've really tried over the last couple of days to, I just don't understand what he's saying. Like I'm trying to understand how he works it out. Because he, to kind of to your point, you were just like, I don't really have a better way of describing it other than just its conviction, and maybe you'll work that through. But David Bentley Hart does have a way of explaining. He tries, but I don't understand it. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I can't make sense of it. But that's on me. I would take that to be on me. I mean, I respect his intellect too much to just be like, oh, he's just saying nonsense. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it may be that even someone as brilliant as David Bentley Hart is not above speaking nonsense.
yeah,
That's
it's
possible.
very true. Well, I mean, because and I've said this to you, that's what I hear with a lot of these, like, I believe in God isn't a being, but I believe that Jesus, who is a being, is this God who isn't a being. Then that's kind of like, from my ears, the way that computes in my brain is I'm saying that God isn't a being, but in reality, I think God is a being. I just know he's not. You know what I mean? But I know that that's not true of you, and I know that's not true of David Bentley Hart. That's why I was trying to tell you earlier, as like I was thinking when I was running today about how the data that we take and the way it computes in our own brain isn't necessarily the reality of because I know that's not what David Bentley Hart's doing. But I don't know, like the way that information calculates in my brain, that's what I'm hearing. That's the only way I understand it. Is like I'm saying on out of this side of my mouth that God isn't a being, but by affirming that Jesus is this being who is God, I am actually assigning a being to this God who I'm claiming is not a being. It's like I'm saying one thing, but the practicalness of my theology is saying otherwise. You know what I'm trying to say?
Right. Yeah.
But that's just the way, like, I know that that's not necessarily the reality of what he's doing, but that's the way the information calculates in my brain. So it's kind of but it is an important lesson as far as like making judgment about people or like trying to rush to like that's the only way that sounds in my brain, but I know he's doing something. I know that's not how it calculates in his brain. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
know he's got some other way of doing it. I just don't understand it. So my perception of it isn't necessarily, you know.
Yeah.
It's a difficult thing to try to express, but
Yeah,
you know what I'm
I'm
trying to
picking up
say.
what you're putting down for sure. Um, I he's an interesting guy because his I think that we got going over 2 hours now. That his book that all should be saved is really short actually,
Yeah,
and so was this one. I think this one's only like 150 pages, I think, and like you just did an entire Christology in like 150 pages. Like, that's pretty crazy.
right.
But like yeah, it's a really short book. I think that I'm thinking about because it's so short, I'm thinking about just not even like taking it off the Christmas list,
Yeah,
just buying it
just buying it outright.
and just and reading it really quick.
Yeah,
Because it is such a short read. Um but yeah, he's also not someone who's super easy to read. The vocabulary you can struggle with.
right. I
Um
could see that. I've never read. I've listened to a ton of him on podcasts and YouTube videos and stuff. I've never actually read any of his books. So
I've listened to That All Shall Be Saved probably 3 times. And it is kind of hard to follow at times. That's why I've listened to it 3 times,
right.
because sometimes the language can be a little bit hard to understand. But I've heard him say one time, because this is one of his critiques about that Devil's Redemption book. He was like, the more absurd the thing you're trying to defend, the longer a defense is required.
It makes sense. Actually, it makes a lot of sense.
So that's why he says that the Devil's Redemption is like 1,300 pages, and
Yeah,
his That All Should Be Saved is like, I don't know, like 180 or something like that.
that actually makes a lot of sense, and I can actually hear him saying that. So
Yeah.
I think so. From what little research I did into his like conception of God, what the the very base level that I understand, the way it works is that he's redefining being, which makes sense because, like I said, in the Tillichian view of it, that it doesn't calculate at all. It's absurd. It doesn't make
Hmm.
any sense. But he's essentially just redefining the. So it's almost not what's the word, not disgenuine of him, because it's proper language, but it is a little bit misleading to put it side by side with Tillich's and say, because that's what actually got me started on this thing. You sent me that thing that you researched with ChatGPT and was like, I asked ChatGPT to compare Tillich's theology to these people that I'm more familiar with. And it kind of indicated that like David Bentley Hart and Tillich were kind of close on their whole, because they don't conceive of God as a being, but, Tillich ground of being, Bentley Hart being itself. So it gave me the indication that they had a similar view. And I don't think they're similar at all. They're actually using two different definitions of being if you look at their different, what they're doing. So it's completely different conceptions. But
Yeah. Yeah, perhaps. I'll have to look into that more. I mean, that's what I would suspect that there would have, like, whenever you were talking about it earlier and how you're not sure how he works that out. As I was thinking it, when you were saying that, I was like, I bet he's probably just working with a different definition of being.
yeah, because I
But
actually asked, that's something I asked ChatGPT. I wanted it to like, how could you possibly do this? Like, if you were to hold that you don't think God is a being, but you think that Jesus, the human who is a being, is this God, how could you possibly just give me anything? Like, how could you make that work? And basically, what it told me was the only way you could make it work is to redefine some of the terms. You would have to redefine being, or you would have to redefine human, or you'd have to,
mm,
you would have to redefine something. If you well, you would either have to redefine it, or you would just have to accept that there's no way to like make logical sense of this and just
yeah,
accept it for what it is. Like,
which might be the move that he's making. I'm not really sure. I don't want to assume,
right.
but
Well, and I'm not saying that's true. That's just what ChatGPT told me.
yeah, right.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Hmm. Well, yeah, we should both get that book
Yeah, I
and
thought it
read
was
it.
a good idea to do. Actually, I thought I'd come up with this idea. Now, I knew that other people had done it in the past, but I thought, like, I hadn't seen anybody do it in a while because I'd come up with this idea that you should get it, I should get it, we should read it simultaneously, and then every week we'll do like a check-in with it. We don't have to do the whole episode on it, but we could do just like we read chapter 1, this is what it got, blah blah blah, like a little blurb about like what we took away from it, and then
Yeah.
we could make the whole episode about that, or we can just talk about something else after that, But then actually come across, because a podcast I like is called Tillich Today. It's about Paul Tillich, and they have just recently started doing the exact same thing, but with Tillich's Systematic Theology 1. They're starting at 1 and then going 2 and 3 and just going through the whole thing. But I'm actually reading Systematic Theology 2. I started at 2, but only because Amazon thought they were going to trick me into spending money, and they don't know me. Because basically what they did was they put Systematic Theology 2 on sale for like $1.99, but then the other ones are like super expensive, and you know what they're thinking. They're like, oh, he's going to buy Systematic Theology 2 for $1.99, but then he's going to be like, well, I got to read 1 before 2, and I'm going to spend like $30. No, I'm just going to jump right to number 2. I'm going to read 2 and then wait till number 1 goes on sale, and then I'll read it. So
It's not like you haven't done that before. You did that with that's how they were assigned to you in uh,
yeah.
what was the courses that you were doing? Incarnation?
Incarnation, yeah. Incarnation, and then the other one was Foundations, but yeah.
Yeah. You ended up reading.
I read them out of order. Or I read them in order, actually. They were assigned out of order.
Yeah. What was the...
It was Torrance. So
Torrance.
it was,
I couldn't think of
Atonement
the
and
name.
Incarnation. And I read Incarnation before Atonement because, well, obviously, Incarnation comes before Atonement. But they assigned them reverse, and then when you actually take the courses, you learn why they did that. It makes total logical sense. But
yeah. Yeah, interesting.
That's what I get for questioning them. I didn't really question them, actually. I just that like Atonement was the first book in the series. I just assumed, or Incarnation was, so I just assumed like you start there. That's the first. But anyway,
yeah.
So I'm trying to read that when I can, but I'm also trying to get through this Chris Green book because I've been taking this course for 9 years and I need to finish it so bad. Like at this point, I'm gonna have to reread the Peter Enns book because it's been so long since I read it. I don't even remember what I read.
That has been a while, actually.
I've just been distracted, man, and a little bit's been kind of where I've been, and I just haven't been motivated to do it. But
yeah,
I need to just to do it and get it done, move on to something else. But
well, I mean, you're almost done with the Chris Green book.
Yeah, I got about 8 pages left. Now I've still got 2 lessons to watch because I haven't never finished the lessons because I was taking so long through the books. It was pointless for me to even watch the lessons. But those will take me no time to get through. I can watch those anytime. They're just available. I got a little app on my phone that's associated with the school where they've got all the lectures uploaded, and I can just get on there and watch them anytime on my phone. So that doesn't take near the time that reading the books do. So
yeah.
But yeah, I've only got about 8 pages left, and I guess I'm going to try to finish it up. So,
Cool beans. Well, I'm parched.
I'm hungry.
I could eat. I've got calories left for the day, but I've also hit my protein goal, so I don't really care, I guess, if I eat anything else or not.
I haven't even been tracking that. I just been tracking total calories. It's working for me so far, so probably losing all kinds of muscle, but yeah. If I want to put it back on, I can. Like that's the one thing I don't have a problem with is putting on muscle or size of any kind, unfortunately. So
yeah, that's the problem. If I'm trying to gain size, I'm going to get fat too.
But I mean, I'm definitely weaker, but I also haven't been lifting near as much either. Just I've had this health stuff going on, and
right.
I'm still trying to do like 2 days a week, but I'm doing nothing heavy. So
I've been doing full body 3 days a week still. I was actually supposed to lift today. Today's a normal lifting day for me.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't do it since we were recording.
I've been doing Mondays and Wednesdays, but I'll probably just this week I'll switch out Wednesday and Thursday because we usually record on Thursday. So
yeah, I'm gonna lift tomorrow and Saturday morning, I guess.
I actually go for my CT scan tomorrow, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Am I gonna live, Doc?
Yeah.
We'll see.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah. It'll be as it'll be.
Indeed.
Who's to say what's fine and what's not?
I guess.
It'll just be, right?
Yeah. Let it be.
That's the way the Zen would approach it anyway. The Zen teachers, it's who says what's good and what's bad. It just is. Just let it be. Just let it be is.
Mhm. On that note, are you ready to shut her down?
Yes.
Okay. Good.